Alright, I am back with another video, and today we are doing another build request from the Theory Crafter livestream from, like, what, 3 weeks ago now? It's been a while. It takes a while to get through these requests, especially when I take detours to do, you know, random builds that end up being one of the most popular videos on my channel. Anyways, this is a very specific request. I was asked to do a female high elf who is an Archfey Warlock mixed with a Sorcerer, so a Sorlock, nothing too crazy here. This request comes from, I believe their on YouTube is Moonsong Reverb, a long-time member of the channel. I think has been subscribed for a few months and basically kind of around the chat when the channel really started to take off. So, you know, thanks for sticking around, and I really hope you enjoy this build. Quick thing before we get into it is, yes, this is a modded character visually. The build is vanilla, but the face and hair are modded. The outfit, though, and the dyes used with it are completely vanilla, so while you can't recreate this exact head, everything else can be done in base game, so if you're on console, woohoo. And for the record, that is the case with all of my builds. I have not done a modded build on this channel yet, and a couple of people will say, like, oh, you know, I would like to see you do modded builds, and as much as I would love to, I kind of don't want to alienate console players, especially when we have a massive new wave of them coming from Xbox, which is a more recent release. So I really want to kind of, especially while the game still has a ton of possibilities just with the base classes and such, and weapons and all that, I don't really want to go into modded content just yet. And again, a bunch of other content creators, I'm sure, already do that, so there's not much point. But anyways, let's get into the build. Since we are a Sorlock, it makes sense to start off as a Sorcerer. This is going to give us Constitution saving throw proficiency, which we want for our concentration. We don't necessarily need any of the weapon and armor proficiencies that come from Warlock, so we don't need to go there first. And spoiler alert, I'm only using Warlock and Sorcerer for this build, so I'm working with what I've got. But this is going to get us a few things, like cantrips. I've just gone for some mainly utility ones, because I think the main blaster cantrip we're going to be using is Eldritch Blast. I mean, that does kind of just make sense in the long run. But we can get some useful utility items. I've gone for Mirror, Minor Illusion, and Mage Hand, because the overall theming of this character I kind of wanted to go for is that kind of Feywild, you know, mystical aspect of things. But I don't want to go as far as the Feywild Channeler, where it was all about, you know, the actual, like, wilds and nature and the chaos that brings. I wanted to kind of just go for more of a kind of prankster, trickster vibe, because the other part of this request is that this is meant to be a Dark Urge Redemption character, and I feel like a Dark Urge Redemption may, like, sort of fulfill the Dark Urge by just being kind of a prankster arsehole rather than, you know, straight up murdering people. But you can play the character however you like. But I kind of just liked that vibe, so I thought I'd go for some slightly tricky spells, but this is still kind of just like a more of a spellcastery build. Because when I build Warlocks, I usually build them as Pact of the Blade Warlocks and make Gish builds. I don't really do, like, full caster Warlocks very often, so I thought I might go this route this time. So, anyways, Minor Illusion, like I said, it's a tricksy little illusion. Mage Hand, very useful utility spell. Shocking Grasp, if we need a melee option, Shocking Grasp is pretty good. And finally, Ray of Frost, just so we have a ranged cantrip that is an Eldritch Blast. And this one also can reduce movement speed, so if we're trying to keep enemies away from us, this can stop them from getting as close. As for our spells, I have Mage Armour here, but I'm going to take it off. I was just using it for testing. And I'm going to just throw on the classic Shield and Magic Missile combo. Magic Missile is kind of like Eldritch Blast, just as a first level spell, so, you know, we're going to pick it up. And as for our subclass, I mean, we're playing a kind of Feywild, you know, Archfey Patron build. We have to go with Wild Magic. Draconic and Sorcerer are absolutely fine. It's not going to change the build that much, but I just love Wild Magic. I love the chaos that comes with it, using Tides of Chaos to be able to gain advantage on your next attack roll, ability check, or saving throw with an increase of a Wild Magic Surge. And the Wild Magic Surge effects can be super fun. They can be powerful, they can be detrimental, they can be somewhere in between, or they could just be goofy. I absolutely love Wild Magic, and I absolutely recommend it. As for our ability scores, pretty standard Charisma caster affair here. I am going with the 17 Charisma Ethel's Boon to 18 combo here because it is just the most efficient. I'm also going for a Constitution of 14 here. It's a nice middle ground, but we actually are going to be bumping this up with our equipment. And finally, Dexterity at 16 because it's a nice middle ground, works nicely with Mage Armor, which we will be getting later. And so, yeah, works out pretty nicely. As for our proficiencies, we are a High Elf Dark Urge, meaning we're going to get Medicine, Intimidation, and Perception right off the bat, leaving us with just these Sorcerer skills. And because we already have Intimidation, I decided to round out the Charisma dialogue options, that being Deception and Persuasion, because this is going to be the face of the party if you're playing a Dark Urge Redemption character, so having all of these skills is absolutely perfect for us. Now, I'm going to dip straight into Warlock, starting from here. You could go all the way to the level of Sorcerer that we're going to be taking, but I feel like I just want to go for the Warlock stuff first, because I feel like it's going to get us more things that are in line with the character that we're trying to play. So, let's do that now. But as of course with any of my builds, you can take these in any order you wish, and more so now than usual, since we're not gunning for things like extra attack, so feel free to play around with the leveling order of this build. As a level 1 Warlock, we are going to obviously get Eldritch Blast. This is going to be probably our main range damage option, and probably just our main damage option overall. Eldritch Blast is really strong, as most of you know, but let's also pick up Bone Chill, because I think it's cool, and it will give us an undead target's disadvantage on attack rolls, really good in that too. As for our patron, of course, we're going with the Archfey. That was kind of the whole point. This is going to get us a couple of things, like 2 extra spells to choose from, that being Fairy Fire and Sleep, but mainly the Fey Presence class action, allowing us to charm or frighten nearby foes with the Feywild's beguiling disturbing magics. Now, for some reason, I thought this only targeted a single enemy. It doesn't. It targets enemies around you, so if there's a bunch of enemies surrounding you, you can target more than one at once, which I think is awesome. As for our spells, I mean, like I said, we're going to be taking Fairy Fire out of these two because I think it's quite nice, but I also quite like picking up Armour of Agathis here, allowing us to gain 5 temporary hit points and deal 5 cold damage to any creature that hits us with a melee attack. This scales with an extra 5 per spell slot, and it lasts until an extra long rest. It lasts until we take a long rest. All those temporary hit points fall to 0. Overall, it's a pretty nice defensive utility option, but not 100% necessary, so feel free to take whatever you like here. At Warlock level 2, we're going to be getting our Invocations, which is awesome. And I think it's pretty obvious the first one we're going to be taking is Agonizing Blast. If we're using Eldritch Blast, we kind of have to pick this up. But the next thing can be whatever you like, and I'm particularly going to be taking Armour of Shadows. This is going to allow us to cast Mage Armour as much as we like without needing to expend a spell slot of any kind. Really, you can just pick up Mage Armour from Sorcerer if you'd rather pick up a different invocation, but I kind of like this one because it's not going to use a spell slot, and since we're not going as high in Sorcerer levels as most people might do, our spell slots are a little bit more, squished, so I'd much rather just have that extra one, just in case, but obviously do whatever you like. As for our spells, I'm going to pick up Hellish Rebuke just because I quite like it, and it's a unique option that I think only Warlock gets, unless I'm mistaken. Otherwise, correct me in the comments, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, but it's a fun little reaction spell that allows us to do a bit of damage when we take damage, so I like picking it up here, but Sleep or Hex or anything would be perfectly fine. At Warlock level 3, we are going to be able to get our Pact Boon, and I am not taking Pact of the Blade like I said, but Pact of the Tome. This is going to get us 3 really awesome and fun spells. Guidance, which is usually only obtained by Clerics, allowing us to add a 1d4 bonus to ability checks, which is great. We do have Friends on this build as our High Elf cantrip, but this can be a nice alternative if a teammate happens to be taking up the helm. Also, Vicious Mockery. We just get to taunt people, throw out taunts, deal psychic damage, and when they get hit, they have disadvantage on their next attack roll. Super fun, absolutely love it for this build, usually only obtained by bards, but we get it here. And finally, Thorn Whip, usually obtainable by druids. This is going to give us another melee cantrip, which allows us to pull creatures closer to us and do piercing damage. It's just a fun little option that I feel fits on theme with the kind of Fey thing, so I really like it here. As for our spells, we are up to level 2 at this point, and I want Darkness because, yes, I want to get the Darkness Devil Sight combo on this build, because why not? But you don't need to take this yet, you could take it at a later level, but I'm just grabbing it now so I don't forget. At Warlock level 4, we're going to be getting a few things, namely our first feat, and I want to take an ability score improvement and bump up our charisma to the max with Ethel's Boon. This is now going to be at 20, which is awesome. At total level 5, we now have a maxed out stat, and it's our main one. As for our cantrips, we do get another one, and I'm going to grab Poison Spray. As for our level 2 spell option, we can grab another one, and I'm going to say Mirror Image is quite a nice option here. I'm kind of skirting around Misty Step despite how obvious it will be, but we're playing an Archfey Warlock and a Sorcerer, so we're going to have plenty of opportunities to pick this up. So, you know, I'm just kind of leaving it behind for now, but Mirror Image I quite like as well. It's just more AC without needing our concentration, so we can stack it with other stuff. It just helps with survivability, and it's just a really cool spell visually that I think works nicely with this build. And then at Warlock level 5, we do get our Deepened Pact class feature, allowing us to, as a Pact of the Turn Warlock, cast Animate Dead, Haste, and Call Lightning. Animate Dead and Call Lightning are cool, but just kind of okay for this build. But Haste is another story entirely. That's going to give us an extra action per turn, an extra 2 to our armor class, and we gain more movement speed, allowing us to just blast left and right and center. This is great for a blaster caster build like us. As for our spells, we do get to pick another spell at this level, and I quite like picking up Counter Spell. It's a great utility option, and I like having it around. And we do get another Invocation, so I'm going to be taking Devil's Sight, like I said, and now we have the Darkness Devil's Sight combo if we need it. Now, we're not necessarily a melee build, so we might not get as much use out of it, but we can use close range spells at close range if you kind of angle them right, like Fireball, and just make ourselves generally harder to hit. Because what we can do is, even if we're not in melee range, you just cast Darkness on yourself, making ranged enemies unable to hit you, and melee enemies having to get really close and have disadvantage, and you can just blast out of the darkness. Very, very awesome. Love this combo. Next up at Warlock level 6, we are going to be getting our subclass feature, and that is Misty Escape. Upon taking damage, become invisible. On your next turn, you can cast Misty Step, though this will break your invisibility. If there was a more tricksty Archfey trickery spell feature thing out there, I wouldn't know about it, because this is awesome. That was the most batshit sentence I've ever said. That was just completely non-coherent. But anyway, Misty Escape, I absolutely love it. It basically just allows us to get out of danger once every so often for free. Really, really good. Worth having. And we do get another level 3 spell at this level, and I want Blink. Now, Blink, I think, has the most value on melee builds. If you can somehow get Blink, like, through the Ring of Blink on, like, a fighter or something, it works out really, really well. But I still like it here. I've really kind of warmed up to this spell recently. I used to kind of ignore it, but I like it here. Basically, it allows us at the end of our turn to roll a d20, and on an 11 or higher, so just less than 50% chance, you vanish into the ethereal plane, and while there, you cannot be seen or harmed in this world. Then, when you do vanish, your presence here is a representation of the location you'll come back to. You can choose to teleport up to 6 meters. So basically, it's just another way to kind of ensure that you're not going to get attacked as often. Unfortunately, though, Blink does break concentration on spells, so if you're using things like Haste or whatever, it might not be so valuable. But if you need survivability rather than attack power, this is your go-to. But there's tons of other things, such as Hunger of Hadar, Plant Growth. Plant Growth would actually be a really good one. Hypnotic Pattern would also be a good one. Fear would also be a good one. This build is entirely customizable. Do whatever you like with it. And then next up, at Warlock level 7, which is going to be our final level of Warlock, we're going to get a few things, and I'll explain why I wanted to go to Warlock level 7 first. The big thing was level 4 spell slots. Normally, when you go to level 7 of a full caster, say a Sorcerer, you would get 1 level 4 spell slot at this point. I believe, unless I'm mistaken, let me know in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. But if we go to level 4 of Warlock, we get, level 7, my apologies, we get 2 level 4 spell slots, which recover on a short rest, meaning we can use our highest damage attacks more often. So I feel like this is a good balance to strike. I don't really care about the level 6 feature of Wild Magic for this build. If you're playing a Draconic Sorcerer or a Storm Sorcerer, you may want to adjust the levels here, but for this build, I feel like what we have is pretty good. As for our spells, like I say, we get access to level 4 spells at this point, and anything here works. I quite like Greater Invisibility, but we've not exactly spec'd into Stealth here, so it might not be the strongest option. Banishment would be really good, Blight would be really good, any of these can work out nicely, so honestly it's a pick your favourite situation. As for our Invocation, as we do get another one here, you have a few extra options here. Book of Ancient Secrets would allow you to cast Silence, Rare Sickness, and Chromatic Orb, each once per long rest. Although personally, Silence is the only thing that kind of speaks out to me here, because we can't get this from Sorcerer, but the other two you can, so if you want these two spells, just get them from Sorcerer, whereas I think Silence will be better here. would be better than anything else, but yeah, it's not really that worth it. Dreadful Word would allow you to cast Confusion, which would be on theme, but again, it uses one of your spell slots, so I don't know. Sculpture of Flesh would allow you to use Polymorph, which again would be kind of chaotic and fun with the whole wild magic aspect, so it's up to you if you want to pick that up. We also gain things like Mire the Mind and Sign of Ill Omen for slow, which could be very good, or Sign of Ill Omen, which could be fine, I guess. But there's also things like Beast Speech, Fiendish Figure, One with Shadows, or Repelling Blast. This is definitely a pick your favourite situation. I might just keep it pretty standard and go with Repelling Blast, because I feel like pushing things is really, really useful in this game, so it's entirely up to you. Take whatever you like here. Again, this is probably one of the more customizable builds I've done. You don't really have to stick to anything rigid here to make it work. It's very freeform, much like the Fey itself. Unless you make a deal with them. And that shit kind of gets weird. Anyways, now we're going to be dipping back over to Sorcerer, and we're going to be staying there. And again, you might have wanted to take these levels earlier if you wanted better magic. Maybe the optimal way to do this would be like a 5-5 and then fill in the last 2 slots of Warlock later. I don't know. This is entirely up for you guys to decide how you want to level this. But let's get into it. We get another level 1 spell at this point, and I just like Chromatic Orb, as it is a one-stop shop for any type of elemental damage. If you have something that's resistant against force or whatever you have, you always have an option to pick out something that will be useful in a fight. Plus, it's cool, and I like elemental magic, and having one spell that does it all works for me. And as for our meta magic options, we obviously have a few choices. Twin Spell I like, but honestly I'm not sure if it's as good on this build. We take a lot of spells with this build that aren't really like attack roll based, they're more saving throw based, and they don't really pick targets as much, so you might get some more variety out of other things, but I'm just going to pick it for safety's sake. And Extended Spell can make your haste go longer, or your darkness go longer, or Careful Spell might be good to stop you from being blown up by your own fireball if you have to cast it at close range, which I may or may not have done in the combat footage, so it's entirely up to you. Pick whatever you like here. At Sorcerer level 3, we're going to be getting some useful stuff, including more meta magic, namely Quicken Spell. Quicken Spell is always going to be useful, so I quite like picking it up. As for our spells, we're up to level 2 options at this point, and I think you could take Misty Step here if you want, Cloud of Daggers, Blur, any of these will work, Shatter. I'm just going to pick the standard option and go with Scorching Ray, but again, things like Enlarge, Reduce, Hold Person, Knock, Detect Thoughts, maybe, I don't know, Crown of Madness, any of these can work. You just have to choose. Build this the way you want it. At Sorcerer level 4, we're going to be picking up our final feats of the build, and this is a completely free option. Our Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma are all in a good place. We don't really need an ability score improvement, but you can take it in any of your stats to bump them up and feel pretty comfortable. But you can pretty much put this into any feat you like as well. Things like Magic Initiate, Spell Sniper, Ritual Caster, friggin' no, Mobile. Anything you like here is pretty much free game, but I want to take a specific feat that I think really works nicely with this build and feels on theme. Lucky. Lucky is going to give us 3 luck points, which we can use to gain advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws. It basically fits in really nicely with our Tides of Chaos Wild Magic Sorcerer feature, which allows us to do something similar, and this will come in handy a lot more than you realise. I really, really like this, so I wanted to pick it up here. As for our cantrips, we do get another one, and I'm just going to pick Firebolt, since we somehow don't have it already. Also, for another spell, I'm just going to pick, you know what, Enlarge Reduce, because it can be fun sometimes, but it's entirely up to you. And then finally, at Sorcerer level 5, we're going to get access to level 3 spells, meaning that we can pick whatever we like. Now, technically, we already have Haste, but it's once per long rest, so if you want to pick this up, you could. Or you could have the Warlock once per long rest one, and the one from the Darkfire Shortbow, if you like, and then have 2 per long rest, and then you really don't need to take this. I'm just going to grab Fireball because it's what I used in the footage, and because it's a big, massive, fucking melt-your-face-off sun that's just going to deal big-ass damage and a big ball of 8 to 48 fire damage, and kaboom. Yeah, it's Fireball, you already know what it does. My voice was starting to go then, but I've got it back. You can also take something like Lightning Bolt, Fear, Sleet Storm, Slow. Yes. It's entirely up to you, take whatever you like here. I'm just going to grab Firebolt. Firebolt? Fireball. Whoops. And that is the build. Overall, you're going to be getting quite a lot out of this build. A massive variety of spells, blaster options, battlefield control options, support options. You have them all. You also get a decent pool of spell slots and meta magic, allowing you to augment them as you need. You get up to level 3 spell slots with your Sorcerer and 2 level 4 spell slots with Warlock that recover on a short rest. You're getting your meta magic options. We have less meta magic points than I would like. But for this build in particular, I kind of valued the Warlock stuff more than the Sorcerer stuff, which is a bit weird for me. Usually I go the other way. I would normally build maybe like either a 6-6 split or a 7 split in, or a 7-5 split in Sorcerer's favour, but I wanted to change things up for this build because I actually feel like going a little bit further, especially with Archfey Warlock, getting that like the Misty Escape. I really like it, and I felt like just going that extra level for the level 4 spell slots, but really you can play with the amount of levels you take in either class in this one. It's entirely up to you. And in fact, just taking that, if you just wanted to go maybe a 1 level dip in Wild Magic Sorcerer and go all the way the rest of the way Warlock for whatever you wanted there, you would get Wild Magic Surge on all your Warlock spells regardless, so it's entirely up to you. But let's get into the actual equipment now, shall we? So, again, the equipment for this build is a bit malleable as well. There's nothing really here that I would say is set in stone. Feel free to change this up as you like, but this is kind of what the setup I came up with that I felt worked out quite nicely for this build. Let's start off with the weapon. I'm going to keep calling it what I have been calling it, the Markiplier Staff. Basically, this is kind of the staff that any full caster wants to go for by the end game. You can pick this up in Act 3. It is the best staff for casters in the game, no question. This is going to give you a +1 bonus to your spell safety DC and spell attack rolls. Perfect. You also, once per long rest, get the ability to not use a spell slot on a spell you cast. Awesome. It's a +2 weapon, so if for some reason you have to bonk someone on the head with this thing, you can. And then finally, you get a unique spell called Kareska's Favor, allowing you to basically pick an element out of the, I guess I'll call them the chromatic elements, and basically buff yourself with that element, gaining a status effect that is related to it. So Reverberation for Thunder, for example, Heat for Fire, I believe it's Chilled or Encrusted with Frost for Ice, that kind of thing, right? Each of your spells dealing that type of effect, which is really fun. The Thunder one especially is the one I used in the Combat Village, and getting Reverberation off too was super cool. And you also get 2 spells in addition to that are related to that type as well. I believe, just for example, the Thunder variant gains Destructive Wave and Shatter. So that's just an example. But play around with this one, it's really fun. Definitely the best staff in the game, but again, it's an Act 3 option, so let's go over the others you can kind of pick up along the way. The first up is the Morning Frost, basically just giving you a little bit more with cold damage. This is an Act 1 option with a fun little side quest to pick it up. Basically, when dealing cold damage, you deal 1 extra, which is okay. But also, whenever you deal cold damage with a spell, you possibly inflict chilled upon the target, making them vulnerable to cold damage, which means all your ice spells are going to deal double damage. I've used this in my Cryomancer build, and it's nice as an Act 1 option, especially even if you didn't take Ray of Frost, you get it from this anyway, so works for us. As an Act 2 option, we have the Incandescent Staff, which is going to give you a +1 to range spell attacks, resistance to fire damage, and also Firebolt and Fireball, which I believe the Fireball can be cast once per long rest, yes, but Firebolt can be cast indefinitely. So, again, more spell options here, but really, you want to be gunning for this. As for our actual armour here, let's get into that. First up, the Hood of the Weave. This is just going to give us a +2 bonus to spell save DC and spell attack rolls, but it is entirely optional. The Birthright Hat, the Diadem of Arcane Synergy, anything can work in this slot. I mainly wanted this because I initially envisioned this build with a hood, and I actually think it still looks dope with a hood, so it works fashion-wise, but the buff we get is really nice as well, with the staff as well. We're getting a total of +3 on our attack on our spell stuff, which is awesome, and I think it does look cool, but I really wanted to show off the hairstyle, because I think it looks awesome. But it's entirely up to you, so a hood would look quite nice with this build. Since this is a Dark Urge Redemption character as well, we might as well pick up the Deathstalker Mantle. And I only just found out today that there is actually a way to miss this item if, like, a companion kills the person instead, then the butler won't give you this one. So I think that's quite interesting, but it means, this just means that whenever you kill an enemy, you become invisible for 2 turns. Perfect, being able to turn invisible like pretty much all, like a lot of the time. It's perfect for kind of a tricksy Fey character, so I really like it. Next up is a bit of a weird choice, the Enraging Heart Garb. While raging, the wearer generates 2 turns of wrath. Well, we're not a barbarian, so why even bother? Well, again, it's mainly a fashion option. I just put it on as a kind of like, just as I was kind of, you know, going through the wardrobe, and I really liked how it looked on this character, and it comes with the really unique bonus of giving us a +2 to our constitution, allowing us to have 16 con, even with just the base 14, meaning that we're going to have more HP and better chance to save our concentration saving throws, so I actually really like it on this build, but again, you can change it for whatever. Next up, we have the Haraknir Braces. This allows us to cast a Mage Hand as a bonus action, which can be useful, but mainly it's here to give us telekinesis once per short rest, which again is just another super fun spell. Again, I just kind of wanted this for like the fun telekinesis spell that it gives us. This is totally optional. Feel free to throw on the gloves of dexterity instead, getting 18 dex and being able to put those points into things like wisdom and intelligence if you want. But I was just like, hey, you know what, getting telekinesis on like a Fey build just kind of felt right, just being able to like just toss people around or toss objects in like a bit of a chaotic way. It felt fun. Because telekinesis isn't just a cast it once and you're done type deal. As long as you maintain concentration, you can keep doing it without using a spell slot, or in our case, without having to use the once per short rest feature again. So it lasts a long time, so I was just like, you know what, let's just get it. But again, gloves of dexterity or whatever could absolutely work. And finally, the boots are a completely free option. I've just gone with the evasive shoes here because they give us a +1 to our armor class, and if I just quickly cast Mage Armor, you can see that we have a total of 18 AC with this setup, which is very good. So as you can see, just having the evasive shoes and the Ring of Protection, which also gives us a +1 to our armor class, just rounds out our AC quite nicely. But again, this boot is a totally free slot, so do whatever you like with it. And then next up, these rings are just kind of like the Fey rings, the wild magic rings. We have the Ring of Fey Wild Sparks that makes it basically guarantees a wild magic surge instead of just having a high chance whenever we use Tides of Chaos, which, you know, I love. And then finally the Fey Semblance Amulet, giving us advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. This is a complete throwaway, I just liked it because of the theming. You can put whatever you like in here, such as the Spellcrux Amulet to give yourself an extra spell slot, but it's entirely up to you. So yeah, that is the build. Overall, again, this is just a powerful caster build with a ton of fun extra features that are going to give you a lot of, you know, unique ways to approach various situations. Again, you're a charisma caster, meaning you're the face of a party, and I just like the kind of overall vibe of it. So I feel like this is just it's a fairly standard, but it is quite a fun build overall. And you get a lot of those extra little bonuses like Vicious Mockery and, you know, the Fey Presence and all this extra stuff like you wouldn't normally get if you just played either of these classes kind of more standard, making a Pact Blade Warlock or something. Like, you just get a bit more fun overall. And again, once you get all the kind of equipment together, and again the wild magic surges, oh my god, you're gonna have fun. It's gonna lead to a lot of excitement and overall chaos, and it's fun. I really, really like it. As for end of video stuff, pretty much after I finish this recording, I will be doing the next build theory crafting livestream where we're going to be doing the deity builds. So that's going to be fun. Keep an eye out for deity builds every Friday until they're kind of done. That's probably going to be a lot of live streams like that to kind of, because I feel like I want to kind of make all of them with the community, not just a couple and then I come up with the rest myself. So we might actually do a series of live streams for it, but I'm not 100% on that yet. As for other stuff, I mean, my last video, what was it called? The Reaper, I guess, but it's basically just death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. That video did immaculately, and I think it hit like 10k views within 24 hours, which I think is a new record for the channel. I can't remember. But either way, it's done really, really well. A lot of people liked it, despite me kind of being a bit iffy on the build myself. I was like, this one isn't that good or interesting. It's mainly just the theme, but the theme was obviously enough for people, so, you know, thanks for all your support on that. And in fact, that video was enough to push us quite quickly up to 5,100 subscribers, so, you know, that's still climbing really fast. So yeah, obviously the channel's doing really, really well. We're going to be doing some fun live streams, some more fun videos, kind of over time. Really, really enjoying kind of how everything's going at the moment, and I don't intend to stop anytime soon. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for me, just because I want to rest my voice up, because I'm still a little bit sick. I've had to cut a few coughs and sneezes out of this video already, so, you know, it be how it be. So I'm going to rest my voice for the live stream that's happening in about an hour. Okay, I will see you all next time, and thank you so much for watching.
Come a little closer.
Take this shit, or Zarya will have your head! In the sticks. Kill them, or your spine is mine.
This ends well.
Restore! Put down! Ha! A dung golem!
Let these intruders open! The furnace is ours! Take this ship, or Zarya will have your head! the